Hey, Keeney coming to you with another case study. So we've got this '05 F-250 with a 6-liter in the garage today, and we're finding that we've got what appears to be combustion pressure entering into the coolant system. So if the coolant bottle is medium filled or filled at the top of the max line, it'll pour coolant over after a pretty short period of time of running. When we crack the reservoir cap to let all the pressure out, so we have ambient pressure inside the cooling system, say, or atmospheric pressure inside the cooling system, so it's equal with outside pressure. Put the cap back on, run it for 60 seconds. We get pressure in the radiator hose pretty fast. We get, when you go to squeeze it, when you crack that cap back loose after that 60 seconds, we can hear some air coming through. So very likely that we have some combustion gases getting into the cooling system somehow. This video, I want to do something a little bit different than I've seen done in the past. I want to know and figure out where that pressure is getting into the cooling system, specifically with which cylinder. So to do that, I've got my fancy wiring diagram here for the injectors. And if we recall, based on another video I did with a 6-liter, the way the injectors run on this truck, we have 2 wires for each injector. We have 2 wires that will open the injector, and then we have 2 wires that will close the injector. So each injector has 4 wires going to it. And according to our cute little diagram, these injectors always have power going to them, and then the FICM will control the ground side circuit. And I didn't look very hard to figure out which set of wires were used to open and which set were used to close, but we can pretty well figure that out in the data regardless. And so we're gonna pick the easiest injector to get to and we're gonna run a scope lead on each one of the ground sides for the open and the closed circuits. And then we're gonna take a third scope channel, and I'm actually gonna use a pressure transducer on the coolant bottle. And what I'm going to attempt to do is time align the injector firings with pressure pulses in the coolant bottle. Given our firing order, we should be able to at least identify if we have 1 or more cylinders contributing to pressurizing this cooling system. So we'll get this scope set up, and then we'll go over to the truck and see where it takes us. All right, so we're over at the truck. I'm getting everything hooked up with the scope. I have a fairly comical setup we're going to run because I don't have all the hard connections that I thought I had, so there'll be a Home Depot trip here in the near future, but nonetheless. So we've got 50 psi absolute pressure transducer that we've done the other video on. We've got we have a little tube from a compression test gauge kit, and that will go right into the pressure transducer itself. And then I've got this little power steering vacuum bleed adapter that I'm just going to use to set on the top of the coolant reservoir bottle. I don't have connections to go from this piece to this piece, so we're hodgepodging it together for this test. I've got a couple hoses that are press fit together pretty well, and then that hose will press fit onto here. Pro tip: if you're ever doing this with this type of hose where it comes out of your compression gauge test kit, make sure you take that Schrader valve out. Otherwise, you're going to get all kinds of wonky readings. So Schrader valve's out, and then we'll just press this hose onto this piece and we'll get it set up. So we'll run over there and show you what that looks like. Here is our setup. We got our scope hanging, 3 leads. I got scope channel 1 and 2, or A and B, on the injector circuits. We don't really need attenuators on these. I think they only go up to 75 volts if I remember from another vehicle, but I threw them on there anyway just in case. I like to be a little bit safe. We've got those 2 scope leads going down there to cylinder number 5 injector. We've got our pressure transducer sitting over here with our little battery pack power bank deal and our scope setup. The scope is set so that we are running the pressure transducer conversion correctly, but for some reason the actual pressure that's being converted on channel 3 is a little wonky. All I really need to do is have a time align. So if I can just get a pressure difference whenever we get an entrance of combustion gas to the coolant system, that's all I'm looking for. I'm not too worried about that thing popping out. I mean, all we really need is like a 1 psi difference. So we'll go ahead and get this thing fired up and see what she looks like. Okay, I actually lied to you. I had my setup screwed up. So here's another pro tip for you guys so you don't make the same mistake I did. So on all of these scope leads, I typically will run them to ground. So I got a ground clamp and I got my channel A, channel B connected to ground. Channel C, which is our pressure transducer, I just got in an old habit and I plugged the ground into this. We don't want the ground on battery ground. We want the scope ground to go to our power block. So that's how it works, how it's supposed to work properly. Now, once we are connected, our channel C is connected to our output of our pressure transducer on a power block, and the ground for channel C is connected to our actual power block. Now we're getting a proper conversion on the scope like we're supposed to. So now we'll go ahead, jump in this truck, fire it up, and see what trace we can't get. Now that we're in the truck, we'll let this scope reset. We'll key it on. Should see some activity like normal. And we've already got a bad test. My green channel's not connected. Hang on. All right, now we got our connection fixed. Let's reset our time base. This will just restart the scope. Then we'll key it on. We should see activity on both of those injector circuits because it does a pre-cycle or whatever. And I'll go ahead and fire it up. So, oh, that didn't work. Whatever. Key on. Got our activity. Let our glow plugs run. And then we'll fire it up as soon as it's done doing its thing. There it goes. Now we'll crank it. We've still got our deal connected under the hood. Oh, it just blew off. So I don't know what you could hear or see. Let's freeze this. I don't know what you could hear or see. This is really good data. But right here where we had this drop off, that actual connection we had on the coolant bottle blew off. So that's that drop. We've got some spikes in here. We've got our running. Let me zoom in, process this data a little bit, and I'll bring y'all back. Well, it looks like we've got a first test failure. I don't see quite what I wanted to see in the data. I know you saw the last screen. I took a second capture off camera and I got it stored here. We'll flip around and look at it. Based on what I can see, it was a useless test. The overall trend of pressure, certainly we can see that exactly timeline with when the engine is running. But as far as seeing which cylinders contributing the most or which set of cylinders are contributing the most to causing that pressure increase in the cooling system, I don't think it can be done, at least not with my setup that I've got here. There are spikes in that blue trace, but I do believe that is just noise because I don't remember what the old screen looked like that y'all saw already, but in the new one we can see there's noise as the pressure is rising, but there's also noise after the adapter pops off of the coolant bottle. So I think we just have noise that we're looking at there. But we can look at this anyway. If you're sticking around to this point, you're probably just a nerd. So got some sweet glare going on. So what we can see, same test criteria. We've got key on, engine off, where the injectors are cycling, doing their thing, and then we start the engine. We can see an increase of pressure on the blue trace, and then it pops off and then resets. I put it back on there, let it increase again, and then pulled it off. So this last piece here at the bottom with all this noise, that's actually with the adapter disconnected from the coolant bottle. We still have all that noise. Some of these spikes are kind of interesting. We can zoom in a little further. Zoomed in here a little further with only the greatest glares and the greatest focus. Anyway, so based on the traces that we've got, our red trace is actually going to be our injector close-in circuits because it wants the injector closed all the time, and then the green trace is going to be the injector open circuit. So the red trace goes circuit open, which is the 48-ish volts on the system that controls the injector. So it goes open so that the opening circuit can then ground and energize the opening side. So that's what we got. And then looking through at some of these actual spikes, this is also with a low pass filter installed or set up on the scope. We can see we've got like a PSI jump between them, but nothing's consistent. So backing up just a little bit, obviously this is only one injector that we're looking at on the red and blue. So green here to green here is going to be 720 degrees of crank rotation. And so I would expect to see a spike every so often, the same every time. But here we don't have that. So for example, we can see our spike is before the injector here, just before it, but it doesn't exist on this one. If we keep on moving, we've got a couple spikes before our injector opening, but not like the same. If we keep on going, here we really have no spikes between them, no spikes. There's a spike after. So long and the short of it is, these spikes are inconsistent, and I can't pick anything out of it to say that's actually what is going on, or to say that it's a specific cylinder that is the cause of getting combustion gas to the cooling system. So all that to say, this video is probably super lame because you probably didn't learn much other than if you're curious about this type of test. I don't know, you could do it on yours, post a video, I'd be curious to see it. I'd like to see a car where this works on. I haven't done this test before. It's something I've always wanted to see. It just didn't work for me in this case. But that's all I got for you today. Useless video. If you're super bored, maybe it entertained you for a minute. But I will catch y'all in the next one.